Hey, Milt, smile while we clap for it.
Let's see, our esteemed president has given me an hour and a half. There was some trouble on that. Anyway, I am going to tell you about what is going on in the world of international programs.
You're going to have to hold the microphone.
Talk into the mic.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
I'm going to tell you about the international programs, what we've done, what we're hoping to do, and introduce some of the players here. Now, although I'm giving the talk, we really have a team, and you can see the team here. The first and foremost on the team is somebody we don't normally consider as part of the team. That's Phil Dean, and I've given him the title of G3. G3 because he provides guidance, he's our guru, and he gives us G2 intelligence. Also, David Murdis, who's not here today, unfortunately, but who was part of the Kosovo program with a little help from Phil. And Good Mimula, is Good here today? Goud, sorry, thank you. Who has taken on the job of providing water systems in South India, has built a building in South India, and I'll get back to that in terms of accomplishments. John Shirley, Dave Lowell, and Kathy Coyle on Chile and South America, in the Kanakun program. Paul Thompson and Luke Sunday on Nepal. Herb Stowers and Don Wentz. I call him as doing stuff in the world, and I'll explain that in a little while. And Ron Koopman, who takes care of the city of Berkeley. It's another country. Next slide, please. So here, just as a reminder, here are the areas of focus for the Rotary Foundation, the Rotary International, I should say. It starts with peace, conflict prevention, and solving the issues of conflict. Where you see the number sign in front of the asterisk, it represents areas that we are addressing in one way or another. Thank you. We need a better mic. So the number sign represents areas that we are involved in as part of the program you'll hear. Next one is water and sanitation, maternal and child health, basic education and literacy, and economic and community development. Next, please. Now, just an example, I told you Ron Koopman worries about the city of Berkeley, but in fact what he did was organize the international, I'm sorry, host. I got it mixed up. Hosted the International Scholars for a weekend here. Many of you were involved in that, in which we showed them what the Livermore community was all about and what the functions were that went on throughout the city. And a number of you helped with that in various capacities. In South India, Good, did I get that right today? Goud. I'm sorry. It's not here. It doesn't matter if it's not here. We helped a little bit, but Goud on his own hook. And one of the things I want to remind you is that there are people who are contributing out of their own pockets, as well as we're helping from the Rotary Club. But he basically constructed 2 water systems. And there are more being built now that he set the pattern by locals in South India. It consists of a well, a pump, power, reverse osmosis for the purification of the water. In addition to that, he's built a building which he conducts vocational training for people and education as well. Next. In the area of Kosovo, which you've already heard about, by the way, I should have said that you did hear a detailed resume of what Goud has been doing. Thank you, TJ. In the area of South India. In the area of Kosovo, you've heard various talks by Phil and others, and Dave Murtis, on what we're doing in terms of equipping pediatric intensive care units in a hospital, the Pristina Hospital in Kosovo. And to do this, we're partnered with Assist International. They basically scrounge around and find good, used medical equipment, which we then arrange to ship. And we're also involved with Valley Care, who helps train excuse me, physicians and other personnel to operate these machines and maintain them. In Russia, Beth Cassidy, who's been my mentor, she's not here today, I assume, and I have been involved in providing data on local community support for children with special needs. Now, it's a little old. It was done last May, a year ago May, but I thought I'd put it on to get a little credit and make sure you all remember that. And the reason for that, thank you, TJ, you're really good. You're keeping me on the straight and narrow. There's a reason I'm going to want to bring that up, because we'll talk about Russia again in terms of future endeavors. In Nepal, we have Luke Sunday and Paul Thompson, who have been heavily involved in providing support for Nepalese children in terms of orphanages, an orphanage, and living quarters for seniors. Next, please. In Chile and all over South America, we have the Conaquem project that Dave Lowell and Kathy Coyle are heavily involved in, and they basically support those efforts for children afflicted with burns. And I was really impressed with this number. Greater than 100,000 children have been treated in these burn centers since 1979. Now, we're not the only ones doing this, but we help support this as well as others. In Liberia, we basically provided some money to the DDF money to the Palo Alto Club for their project, which is the elimination of the transmission of AIDS from mothers to children. In turn, we got back $5,000 in cash, which has been very helpful. Next, please. In the world, the reason I mentioned the world, Don Wentz and Irv Stowers in particular, who's just returned from Tanzania, travel all over the world on their own hook to work with the teams on the missions to repair cleft palates. And that's an incredible thing. When you've seen the pictures of the before and after children who benefit from these cleft palates, it's amazing. And in addition to that, Paul Brown is not here, we'll take some credit for helping to support Polio Plus with the Gates Foundation for the eradication of polio. And I know Paul Thompson's heavily involved in that as well. In addition, we do international ambassador scholars, international student and study groups, exchanges. Next. Now, before I go into possible future projects, you might ask, how in the world do we ever choose them? Well, there's a long list of attributes which we consider. First, what's the payoff for the buck? How many people will benefit? What's the total cost going to be? How difficult is it going to be to get through the morass of bureaucracy that exists in global grants? And on and on. There's a list I have, if anyone's interested, of about 20, 25 items that we have to consider in terms of choosing one of these projects. They come to us in different forms, and you'll hear about them in just a moment. First, we were going to have a member. Unfortunately, he lives part-time in Hawaii, so he can't become a member. But he raised the issue of providing water systems, much like Goud did in South India. That is, to basically provide wells, pumps, water purification systems, and distribution systems, as there is currently. Most people don't realize that people line up to get their amount of water they need, one after the other, rather than having manifolds with multiple spouts. In Russia, we've gotten a request from the Open World program saying that Sezninsk is interested in partnering with somebody in the United States, and they came to us first, to work on various projects. The two that stand out the most are governance. Those of you in the city council might be interested. They are very concerned about proper methods and modalities for governance. And there are a number of those. I can't recite them all. And the other area is in the social media. There are a number of issues having to do with social welfare that they're still far behind on and would like some guidance, some suggestions on how we handle some of these things. And finally, we'll talk about Bangladesh. I think I mentioned to some of you that I addressed this issue to a friend of mine at the lab who is from Bangladesh. I think I mentioned that he was, at the age of 15, he got a full scholarship to MIT. It took him all the way through a PhD at MIT. He's a brilliant man. Anyway, he pointed out there were 3 things on the top of the list that he knew of that affect the people of Bangladesh. The first is mosquitoes. And here I'm going to take a small moment and show you some things that I've looked at. Hang on just a moment. I just did a little snooping around Livermore, and I found several microphones. Sorry. Why don't we get a lapel mic? Some of the things I found around Livermore that could help the situation. First, there are these little towelettes that one can use to push away the mosquitoes, and they're okay. They're not great, but they work. Here is something that could be worn on the wrist that exudes a chemical similar to off that removes mosquitoes. It's $4.99. So those of you who are chemists and chem engineers, can you bring this down to 25 cents? Then we have something. And then finally, one of my lady friends came up with this little gadget. Things are all coming apart here. Seriously, we need to get a little help. For klutzes like me. This little gadget looks like a tennis racket, but in fact what you do is you swat mosquitoes and flies, and it has a little discharge, which I don't want to try right now. Well, it works, believe me, and kills them. So you can see all the people of Bangladesh going around swatting mosquitoes and so forth. But anyway, the reason for bringing these little toys and hardware is one of the things I learned in the Pentagon is you don't go to the Pentagon unless you have hardware. Software doesn't sell. So the idea is, if any of you have ideas or suggestions for any of these things and would like to follow up, please contact me. Next. And then we have a number of foreign and global projects. I'm sorry, these are the issues that I have found as I've pursued this as a relatively young starter in this business. I'm old, but young in terms of working in the global area. Some of the issues I've encountered. First, where's Phil? There's a huge amount of bureaucratic crap associated with global grants, And to wade your way through them, my hats off to those who do, like Dave Mirtis and Phil and others. But it's very, very difficult. You have to deal with difficult topics like how do you prove sustainability for ad infinitum? From the day you send something over to a club in some country, some city, so forth, or a remote village, how do you prove that it will be sustained forever? Difficult, difficult project. There's funding issues. There are no particular funding set-asides for global issues or international projects, so one has to sort of cruise around and dig into people's pockets. Most projects involving international projects are more expensive. A lot of people have paid for their travel out of personal funds. You devoted a huge amount of time, personal time, for taking care of all the paperwork and setting up all the arrangements and so forth. It is a chore, believe me. And finally, there's an issue of how do you prorate the distribution between local and international projects. I don't know where it came from, but somehow in my memory bank, I was told that the Rotary International would like an 80-20 split, 80% being for international and 20% for local. I don't know if that's true or not, and so I will consult our guru over here, Phil, and find out whether that's true or not. But there is some guidance somewhere about what the ratio should be. Next. So, in order to keep it in your time scale, that gives you some more time for finding, right? If you have any interest in any of these projects, or you know of any other international projects that might be a prospective activity, please contact me. If you have bucks to apply to any of these, please contact me with your checkbook. If you would like to travel to any of these project areas, see me. And want to thank you all for your kind support in all of these activities, because I know all of you have done something to support any one of these projects in one way or another. So at this point, I can open it up to questions and comments. Are there any? Yes, sir, Mike.
Yes, I have one question in regards to who actually is running the show. Is this something that is being done by our specific Rotary Club, or is this something which is coordinated with Rotary International?
We basically start the ball rolling, and then we have to write basically a concept and finally a proposal with Rotary International, mostly getting through the district first and then on to the following steps. And I think our guru over here has the map in hand for doing all that. But we start the project. Ideas come to us when we work on them or not, depending on how they meet. Yes, sir.
Just to follow on with that a little bit, how does Rotary International support these programs that we suggest? What percentage of the money do they put in?
Well, if we get up to about $15,000 generated from our pockets, from our DDF funds, from other clubs' DDF funds that are willing to partner with us, and if we get to the amount of about $15,000, then Rotary International will provide another $15,000.
Okay.
And so that's how it climbs up the scale.
Thank you.
Yes?
Do the projects ever end, or once they start?
Could you speak up, please? I can't hear you.
When a project is proposed, sometimes does it have, like, this is a 5-year project or a 10-year project, or do these just continue on and on and on?
You remember I talked about sustainability. According to the directions we have from Rotary International, it's ad infinitum. Who's going to maintain it? Who's going to replace it? Who's going to keep on board on it? what government is going to be involved, what the club is going to be involved. There's a whole array of oversight and management involved. Well, you've been a very attentive audience. I thank you very much. If there are no more questions, I'll turn it over to Ralph.